From the studios of the Optimism Institute, welcome to the Blue Sky Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Burke, and in every Blue Sky episode, we'll be speaking to leaders, researchers, and thinkers whose stories and insights will remind us that there is always blue sky above. Sometimes you just have to get your head above the clouds to see it. In the early 2000s, my guest today's life was humming along well. Good job, great family, everything you could reasonably ask for, when suddenly a tragedy struck that changed her perspective and her life's trajectory in an instant. Heidi Johnson's loss of her mother sent her into a deep and unsettling grief. But when a request came for her help with a new program in a children's hospital, Heidi was up to the task, and she spent much of her time since growing this work while also celebrating the heroic and impactful efforts of other nonprofits. Heidi Johnson is the co-founder of a nonprofit at Children's Hospital Los Angeles that provides chaplains representing all faith traditions. As she transitioned from a career in the for-profit tech world, Heidi became fascinated and inspired by others in the nonprofit space, and in 2021 began sharing the stories of fellow founders on her podcast, Charity Matters. In 2024, she published her first book, Change for Good: The Transformative Power of Giving as the Ultimate Cure. This book explores how giving can serve as a powerful catalyst for personal and social transformation. Heidi's work continues to inspire others to find purpose through giving and to recognize the profound impact that individual action can have on communities and causes worldwide. I hope you enjoy this Blue Sky conversation with Heidi Johnson as much as I did. Heidi Johnson, welcome to the Blue Sky Podcast.
Thank you, Bill. It's so fun to be here. I'm so excited. It's fun to be in the passenger seat.
Yeah, exactly. As a podcast host yourself, I think it is harder actually to ask the questions and answer them. It's sort of counterintuitive for a lot of people, but I find the same thing. But I'm ready because I read your amazing book, Change for Good, which came out in just last year. And from that, I learned you grew up in a big Irish Catholic family. Your mom said, life is tough, toughen up.
Yep.
Your dad, interestingly enough, was in the recycling business, which will play a role in your story. Can you talk a little bit about your upbringing, and then we'll talk about the unfortunate events that happened to your folks after that?
Every story kind of has to start someplace, right? We have a curve in our journey and our path and the adventure of life that we begin in. And I've been incredibly blessed and grateful to grow up in a really big Irish Catholic family. With my dad's one of 7, with lots of cousins and aunts and uncles, and living in, growing up just in the 70s and 80s, it just was a different, simpler, happy time where we rode our bike and we played outside and we took care of each other. We took care of our neighbors. We took care of our friends. We figured out our own adventures. We had problems and we solved them. We climbed trees. It was just a really beautiful and, in hindsight, really fantastic childhood. And I have really a wonderful family that really gives back and believes in helping their community. And so I don't think I realized that until I was older, but I definitely realize that now.
So going back 2002, you are, I think, around 35 years old. You've got a great job in the software industry. You're raising a young family, and your parents are off in Costa Rica on a vacation trip. Can you tell us what happened there? Because it's integral to your story and it's quite powerful.
Yeah, they were all on vacation, my parents and 4 couples, and celebrating 60th birthdays. It's kind of crazy as I'm sliding into that,
Yeah, right. Right.
that age myself.
Yeah.
But 4 couples having the time of their life, celebrating everyone's birthdays, the best of friends. They'd raised their kids together. They're having the time of their life. And the night they were going to the beach, but the night before, my mom says, "This is the best day of my life. Fireworks are going off. They're on the cliff, overlooking everything at a friend's house." And my mom says, "is the best day of my life." And the next day, they go to lunch, and they're making a turn, and all of them in the Suburban, making a turn into their perfect beach. And in the blink of an eye, they were hit by a huge tour bus. And instantly, 3 were killed instantly. 1 brain damaged, still alive to this day, but severely brain damaged. So every couple lost a spouse. 4 couples, every couple lost a partner. And it's that phone call in the middle of the night that you hear about, but you don't think it's ever going to happen to you. And it's exactly what happened. We got this call, and everything changed. And everything changed.
So your mother passed away. Your dad, adding to the trauma and the trauma, frankly, was in a coma.
He was in a coma. All of his ribs are broken, lung punctured, broken back, broken femur. He died twice. My husband went to Mexico, and they were in Puerto Vallarta, and close to Costa Rica. Yeah. And my husband went down and medevaced my dad up to LA, where he died twice, was resuscitated, and then was in a coma for a month. And meanwhile, my middle sister is pregnant with her first and only child and is on bed rest. We have multiple bodies we're getting back from Mexico. We have multiple funerals. We can't get my mom's body back. My dad's in a coma. I mean, it's crazy. It's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
And so that was early November. As I recall, your dad was released on Thanksgiving Day, which is a special day and played a role in another part of your story. But in your book, you made really good use of quotes from other people at the tops of your chapters. And one of the people I'm a fan of is John Green. And I hadn't seen this quote before, but John Green said, "Grief does not change you, it reveals you." What in your grief was revealed to you, and how has that impacted the work you've done since then?
I think it revealed everything. I think it stripped me down to my core. I mean, you're shaken down to nothing. You're empty. There's nothing in the tank, and you look around, you're like, what's left? And what do I have? And when I had my moment, and not trying to jump ahead of the story, but I was so empty when someone asked me to help them. And, a year after my parents' accident, and I thought, I have nothing. Yeah. I have nothing to give. I thought I had nothing to answer your question. I thought there was nothing from my grief. And it turned out it was everything.
Right.
It turned out it was the fuel that changed the trajectory of my life completely.
And so as you're about to come out of that, you get a call, as I remember from the book, from a priest, and he described a dilemma. And for whatever reason, he thought you might be helpful. Can you tell us what happened there?
Yeah. So, a friend of mine, John Ziegler, Father John, he went to high school with my husband, martini drinking, really fun, great guy. I mean, yes, he wears a collar, but he's just super cute, like Thornbirds, great looking guy. And I mean, seriously, to Richard Chamberlain. And he calls and he says, "Heidi, I need your help." And priests don't usually ask for help. It's usually the other way around, right? You're going to the priest because you need help. So you take pause at that in itself. And then he says, "Hey, I'm the only guy at Children's Hospital Los Angeles, the only chaplain, and I have 150, I think 200, I think now it's almost 300, but 1,000 children a year coming through, and there's no one to greet the helicopter, to sit with the family. Yes, there's paramedics, but to mentally and emotionally support them. He could not possibly be for every end of life, or a last rites, or a blessing before surgery, or all of these things." And he says, Heidi, I can't do this. And then I'm going at night, I'm only Monday through Friday at the hospital. I'm going to my parish on weekends and nights and doing baptisms, funerals, marriages. He goes, I can't do this. I need help. I said, I have nothing. I have nothing to give. I'm empty. John, what do you want? He said, I think I want to start a nonprofit that provides chaplains of all faiths, not just Catholic, all religions, all faiths, at Children's Hospital. And I said, John, I'm philanthropic, but I don't know anything about this. And he said, please just come and bring friends. And so 9 of us went to CHLA, and a lot of things happened in the hallway at CHLA that really was the Oprah aha catalyst moment that really turned everything around.
I wondered as I read that, and this is probably an unfair question, but was he asking for your help, or do you think he was consciously knowing that he was helping you?
Oh, I think it's such a great question. I don't know the answer to that, but I think he was really asking for help because he was really overwhelmed at that time. But I don't think he realized that he saved me. He gave me this emotional lifeline that turned all of that pain and grief into purpose.
Amazing.
But it was so unexpected, right? It was just unexpected.
Anyone who has ever been in the depths of grief can relate to Heidi Johnson's initial reaction to her priest friend's call for help. She responded, I have nothing. I can't imagine how she'd ever find the energy to pitch in. But Father John was persuasive, and for Heidi, the rest, as they say, is history. Her work at the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles has made a huge impact on the lives of countless families, and we'll hear more about that now as we turn back to our conversation. So the ask for help, you go in with your friends and something lights up in you. You realize this is an incredible opportunity. There's a huge need. And somewhere in there, you decide, let's set up a 501c3. And will you tell us about that?
Yeah. So John says he wants to do this nonprofit. And I said, I don't know anything about that. I mean, I volunteer and I do all the stuff, but I know nothing about that. And so we're in the hospital halls, and when we run into this mother whose child had been run over in the car, and she sees Father John, and she looks like she's seen George Clooney. She's so excited. And because again, he is kind of a cute guy. And there's all 9 of us. And this mother is telling us that Father John had really been her emotional lifeline. He had greeted her at the helicopter with her son, came in an emergency trauma situation. She was a single mom in LA. She had no family or friends in LA. And Father John went every single day for a month to visit her. And when she looked at us in the hall and said, Father John, he's going home Thanksgiving Day, it was the Shazam, the lightning bolt, the chills. To this day, I get chills every time I tell the story. I just knew we were being called to serve. And so in that hall, we said, okay, we're in. Wow. What do you want to call this thing? And we started the Spiritual Care Guild that day, and we shortly thereafter filed paperwork. And the hospital you don't operate at CHLA under their nonprofit. You create your own 501c3.
Yep.
So that's what we did.
And that Thanksgiving, was it a year after your dad's release?
So my dad came home on Thanksgiving, and it was almost a year to the day that I was in the hall at Children's Hospital.
That's amazing.
Pretty crazy.
So tell us what you set up, where it's grown from there, and the life it's sort of taken on since that fateful day.
Yeah. So we thought naively, and I will say I've since interviewed hundreds and hundreds, thousands of nonprofit founders. And all of us have the same naivete
yes.
that we just don't know what we're doing. And it's a blessing in disguise.
Yes. If you knew, you probably wouldn't do it.
We wouldn't do it.
Right.
We all think we're going to help one person.
Right.
We all think, if I can just help one. So we thought, okay, one spirit, one soul, one child at a time. If we can just give one family a chaplain. And chaplains are not preachers, and chaplains do not convert, and chaplains listen. Right. They are not religious people that put beliefs on other people. So I think it's important to define that. And so we said, if we could just help one family, and then if we could really just get 24-hour coverage at Children's Hospital, where there was a chaplain on duty 24 hours a day. And so we started the 501c3 process. It took like 6 months to get our nonprofit status. And we began our plan and our vision of what we're going to do. We had zero money. The hospital gives us not envelopes on stamps. I love CHLA, but nothing. Yeah. And we invited 200 women to a lunch that we put on someone's club account so we could float the bill. And because we couldn't pay it, we had no money. And 100 women came and 100 women joined, and they wrote checks. And we told the story that I just told, and what we wanted to do to help these families. And we were off to the races. And within a year, we had hired a chaplain. We became an accredited department at the hospital. Every chaplain we hired would take 5 interns. So we now had Father John, and then we had another person with 5 more people on call. Today, we have over 30 chaplains, some of religions. I don't even know what they are. Right. We built a $10 million interfaith center. There's a beautiful space in the hospital for chaplain, staff, families to find peace in a difficult time. We have changed the culture of a 100-year-old institution. Yeah. And chaplains are part of the medical team, so they do rounds with the doctors. The chaplains are completely integrated into CHLA. And now we are a national template of pediatric chaplaincy, where children's hospitals all over the country look at our model at Children's Hospital, what we've done, and replicate it.
So the patient or family they could, hit the button and ask for a chaplain, but it's put in front of them as they're making rounds. And it could be something they hadn't thought of as an option. And that's a brilliant part of the model.
And then the other part of the model that's, I think, really important that we didn't realize when we started is we have, so let's just say 4th floor oncology, we have a tea cart with homemade cookies and homemade tea, and we have a chaplain station there. And it's the staff. The staff comes in, and they're so sad. They've taken care of this child for 3 years, and this child's going home healthy, and they miss that child. And they want to mourn that child that they've seen their child walk or crawl or whatever. And so we do a lot to support the staff as well.
Amazing. So you wrote in your book, for personal health and wellness, there are no silver bullets. The closest thing we have is service. So in doing this work, did you start feeling that personal health and wellness impact of service? Was that a quick thing? You've been a year since losing your mom. You're slowly coming out of it. But did this sort of step on the accelerator to help you pull out of the dark place you'd been?
100%. 100%. It put meaning to everything. You can't really explain when someone gets hit by a bus. There's no explanation to it. It just happens. But as you go farther down the path and you look in the rearview mirror and dots begin to connect of purpose and why would I do anything to have my mother back? Of course. But when I look at in the past 20 years that we've had chaplains, the hundreds of thousands of children that have had and families that have had someone by their bedside because of the series of events that happened in my life, I have such joy and peace with that it makes it make sense, right? For some wacky, crazy reason.
Amazing. So that's not all you've done. You also started Charity Matters. And as I recall from the book, you sort of had I think you had a dream about first a TV show about nonprofit and nonprofit founders. And then it turned into a blog, and now it's a place. Can you walk us through all that?
Yeah. So I'm a crazy sleeper. I mean, I didn't wake up when my children cried. What kind of mother does that? Really crazy sleeper. And I don't really have dreams. I don't remember my dreams very often. It's very rare that I would dream, let alone one that jolts me out of bed in the middle of the night. It is incredibly rare. And so I think it was 2009. I had this dream. It was so real. It was so real like it had happened that I got out of bed and I wrote it down. And it was that I had a TV show that told the story of nonprofit founders. And I had been running spiritual care for 5 years as a volunteer and building this business, this organization with hundreds of volunteers and raising tons of money and having great success. And hadn't really thought about what was next. And this dream was basically like, you're doing this TV show about nonprofit founders. So I said to my husband the next day, I had this dream. What do you think of me starting a TV show? And he said, Heidi, anything you've ever done, you just dive in the deep end of the pool and figure out how to swim. And he's like, I don't think anything about that. And I said, okay, well, I've already, contacted some friends in the industry, and I've already gone to the Writers Guild, and I've logged my treatment, and I've already written out my thing. And he goes, oh, okay. I said, but I think maybe I should do a blog, one of those blog things, so that I can kind of get content and start really figuring out, is this really what I should do? He goes, okay, now I'm worried because your tech abilities are really bad.
Right.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Right. He knew you well.
So I did, though. I still did it, and built out the first website and started Charity Matters.
Incredible. And when did you start your podcast?
So the podcast is COVID. So almost 5 years. It'll almost be 5 years. Yeah. It's going to be 5. And
you decided to home in on not just talking about nonprofits, but profiling founders and leaders of nonprofits. What was it? I guess probably because you were one yourself, not by design necessarily, but you wound up founding a nonprofit.
None of us are, Bill.
Yeah, right. It just happens.
None of us choose it.
And so is that what it was, though? Your own personal? Why the founders of nonprofits? You could do a podcast on anything.
What happened is, really, with Charity Matters with the blog, I started interviewing nonprofit founders before podcast existed. And so I already done hundreds and hundreds of these interviews for the blog, where I was transcribing it like by hand. I mean, These interviews, these credible conversations like you and I are having right now.
Right.
And every week, or I would have at least 2 of them for years. And so then I always hired these cute college kids. I went to USC, fight on, and I always hire a couple SC kids to help me with social media and tech and whatever. And they kept telling me, Heidi, you've got to do a podcast. You got to do a podcast. And I said, oh God, that's another tech challenge. I don't know about that. And I have a friend who'd been a big subscriber, been reading the transcripts for a long time, and he works for Logitech. Yeah. And he just sent over all the equipment, and he said, just do it. And so I said, okay. It was COVID, and I said, okay, I've got time. Let's do it. And so I just took the conversations, and I really thought, okay, I have thousands and thousands of email subscribers. They're just going to convert to be listeners. And no. The email subscribers still want to read it. Right. And the listener and the podcast still want to listen. So now I have 2 audiences, which is really fun.
It's been said, only somewhat tongue-in-cheek, that hospitals can be a terrible place to get well. Loneliness, fear, uncertainty, a sterile environment, all these things can weigh on patients and their families. It can be particularly tough for parents of hospitalized children, all the more reason why Heidi Johnson's work to build a chaplaincy program at the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles has been so impactful. With some distance now, Heidi can see silver linings from the passing of her mom, and after having a dream about making a TV show about nonprofits, she's launched another offshoot of her work by profiling inspiring founders, first on her Charity Matters blog, and turning back to our conversation, we'll learn some more about her podcast of the same name.
The conversations I have are very much like Guy Raz's podcast, How I Built This.
Right.
Because nonprofit founders are entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
We start businesses, but it's a really messed up business model. And it's a business model that relies on the kindness of others. And it's a hard model. And so I love to know, what's the backstory? What happened? How did you get here? Because if you're a 5th grade teacher or a kindergarten teacher, and you ask every child every year you're teaching life, what do you want to be when you grow up? Not one child has ever said nonprofit founder. Ever.
That's a fair point. Yep.
Not ever.
Right.
So the journey is fascinating to me. And I love the journey of service because none of us see it coming.
Right. And as you look for people to interview, you had a statistic in your book that I don't think I'd seen before, that there are 1.5 million nonprofits in the U.S. alone. 1.5
alone.
million.
Yeah. Right?
And each one of those was founded by at least one person, or it wouldn't be there. So the subjects are everywhere. I'm wondering now, especially between the blog and then you add the podcast, you've interviewed a lot of people. What sort of commonalities are you finding? One of the things I always talk about, and I'll tease this out of you or lead the witness, but I always say that not every optimist is an entrepreneur, but every entrepreneur has to be an optimist.
Oh, I like that.
They have to believe that they're going to be able to make the world better and that they can play a role in that. Have you seen that? And B, what other things have you seen as commonalities among these founders?
Well, first, I love that. And I think it's 100% true. I think the commonality is one, they don't see it coming. None of us, we all back into it. None of us set out to do it. We all set out to only help one person or 90. Everyone's initial motivation from my perspective is that if they can just prevent whatever happened to them from happening to one other person. So it starts so basic, right? If I could just help one person not go through this treatment, if I can help one person not have this happen, right? I had faith by my dad's bedside, and then because of my family and everything, but I was invited to give it to other families, right?
Right. So they're often founded to address these founders had a personal experience with whatever this issue is that they're going to try to address.
Correct. And to your optimist question, we all have, I say trash, we all have pain, things that happen to us, and we all have a decision what to do with that pain.
Right.
And we have a choice. And we can be angry, we can hold on to it, we can do whatever, or we can use it as fuel for good.
Yep.
And all of these people chose to use it as fuel for good. And they made a choice, a hard choice, and an amazing choice that ends up creating this upward spiral of positivity,
right,
and optimism that's unstoppable. And I think that choice is so fascinating. But I would say 95% of the people that I've interviewed have had something tragic happen in their life, like me, something really unexpected that shocked them. And then I would say about 5% had a near miss and such a moment of gratitude that they couldn't ignore it, that they felt they'd been saved, spared, and they're so grateful that they have to use that gratitude to do this work.
That's really interesting. And you wrote, and I love this phrase or this sentence. You said, "I've realized that the gift of loss is growth." You know, talk about an optimistic position to take to get to the point where you can look at loss as a gift. And it sounds in what you just described that that's what's happened with these founders. They've been given this gift of a near miss or a loss and turned it into something really powerful.
100%. And really, I think that I really think everything begins with loss.
Yeah.
Everything begins with loss. And it's always that darkest time, or, the book, The Obstacle is the Way. There's a million different ways you can slice this. But when you've gone through a really, really hard time, there's always a rebirth. And I was saying this before. I live in Pasadena area, Altadena, where we've had the fires. And long before the fires, I've been saying, and being an LA girl, I say there is no earthquake without a new city, and there is no fire without a new forest. And that is just the way the world is. And that is the same for people. And when we have this incredible loss, we have an opportunity for a rebirth that we're so deep in our loss that we can't see the forest or the trees. We can't see the path, but it's there.
Right. And you're clearly a very strong person. You have a lot of drive, and the work you do, your work are many acts of kindness. And you had another great quote. I just like reading it back to you. I'd love to get your reaction now. "People think of kindness being soft, but when you're near it, it makes you stronger." And I thought that was a really interesting thing to say, because I do think our culture tends to do just that you're soft if you're empathetic, if you're kind. We're often rewarding public figures for this tough, sometimes hyper masculine. Can you talk about kindness making you stronger?
It absolutely does. And I I can't emphasize it enough. And it's like weightlifting or something. You use this muscle regularly and you build it up, and you get this internal strength. It's really this foundation within that is almost that you can't take it down. And it's an internal strength, I would say, that you build these internal muscles that make you resilient, and that you know that if you help someone somehow, so many great things happen when you are kind. And I mean, not only just the physical endorphins you get, the helper's high that you get from helping, the all of the rushes of melatonin, not melatonin, serotonin that you get. You get a tan with melatonin, you get you feel good with serotonin.
No, wait, no, tan is melanin. Melatonin is probably what helps you sleep so well.
Oh, well, there you go. But you also form connected tissue when you're helping someone. You connect with that other person. Then you feel good about your community and your emotional connection, which builds strength, which builds connection there. And then it builds a stronger community system. And then that community is stronger. And the community, I mean, it just keeps multiplying, right? And when you see that you're a teeny cog in this very big wheel of kindness, you're like, I want more of that. Right. That's a great drug. I'd like some more, please.
Yeah, exactly.
And you get kind of addicted.
Heidi offers a great deal of wisdom here that she's gained over the 20 plus years since the loss of her mother. In addition to her own experiences, profiling other nonprofit founders have helped her see patterns. She says that about 95% of the people she interviews have experienced some kind of tragedy that led them to their current work. This has led her to the belief that the gift of loss is growth, and that, as she says, kindness makes you stronger, especially after one begins to experience what Heidi describes as the helper's high. And now to the final segment of my Blue Sky conversation with Heidi Johnson. Now, one of the things you did, and I'm curious to know, I assume several of your interviewees have had a similar path. So we talked before, you were cruising through a corporate career, big company, big job, big in air quotes, it was big responsibility. And then you're with, 9 women in the hospital starting. Can you walk us through that? And have you had moments of like, what was I thinking? I could still be out there making all this money and doing this, with all the support around me and right. Can you talk to us about that? Cause that's one of the daunting things about jumping out off the merry-go-round, if you will. Tell us about that.
And yes, there are many days when I say, oh my gosh, because I run a nonprofit as a day job now. I'm executive director for a youth leadership organization, and not the one, it's not what I started, but I took this on 13 years ago and thought I was going to flip it. And I did flip it, but I kept on the ride.
Right.
And I look at what I'm the CEO, I'm executive director, but I'm the CEO. If I was the CEO of Borland Software at the company where I was working in my 20s, it would be a very different pay scale than what I do. But I like to say that we do get paid in different ways. Yeah. We get paid when we see that we have changed someone's life, when we see someone, and from my situation working with young kids, and I see them evolve and become these incredible leaders, there's no amount of money that can change that. Right. So I have to remind myself that. But yeah, at the time, I had been on maternity leave for a little while, and I was working for Borland. I was handling their distribution nationwide, their consumer products division. It was really exciting. We were the 3rd largest software company in the world. Microsoft wasn't even in the top 3. It was Lotus and Word Perfect for your older listeners.
Gosh. Yeah, I remember.
And Microsoft was coming up from behind.
Oh, wow.
And so it was a really exciting time in the software business. And I was on maternity leave, and I was doing a little bit of consulting for some software, startup software companies as well in marketing. So then what happened is Borland took their consumer products division, and our founder, Philippe Kahn, ended up kind of running it, and he wanted me in Northern California. We just bought a house and had our third child in Southern California, and I said, no, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So the timing kind of worked out that I ended up stepping away in consulting, but I was still doing really well, and I was still getting calls from this upcoming company called Microsoft, thinking about when I'm going to go back to work when all of this happened. But it just, growing up, and I was raised Catholic, and the nuns used to scare the heck out of us, tell us that, we're going to have this calling and that God was going to call. And we were just, as little kids, we were terrified. We're like, oh God, that sounds so scary. I don't want God to call me.
Right.
Please don't call. But when this moment happens and you know you have to do this, in that hospital hall, I knew I had to do this. I mean, it was like a lightning bolt. Like, I knew it.
Amazing.
It wasn't, you don't think about anything. And everyone I've interviewed, the same.
Yeah.
You don't even think, you just, you know your name.
Amazing. So there may be people listening to this who have thought about going off and starting their own thing in service and nonprofit. Is there anything you wish you'd known, you know now, that you wish you'd known when you started, that you would advise someone just to give some thought to before diving into the deep end?
I think there is now a book called Nonprofit Founders for Dummies or something. And I'm glad I didn't read it. And all the people that I've talked to, none of them knew either. Some have had easier. I was lucky because I'd had a business, a sales and marketing background.
Yeah.
I definitely had skills that helped me create community. But at the end of the day, your job as a nonprofit founder is to build community. And your job is to take the fire and passion that you have for something and to ignite it in others and ask them to join you.
Yes.
And your job is to collect people and get them so excited about what you're doing that they're like, oh my gosh, I have to be part of that. And that really is the key role initially is building your tribe, right? Is building your tribe and going through and finding your village and then getting their village to keep building the village. And that's really, you're the passionary, you're the passion. And I say this sometimes laughingly, but it's like the Harry Met Sally, Meg Ryan's like, I'll have what she's having.
Yeah, exactly.
People want to have what you're having because you're so joyful and you're so excited, and people want that in their lives, and they can get it. They can get it. It is contagious.
And one of the things that probably makes you feel great is, and you point this out in the book, and I don't think a lot of Americans appreciate this. I didn't until I did an academic fellowship with a lot of international adults, just how philanthropic this country is and the individuals in this country. And when you start on something like this and you get up your courage to ask someone to support you financially or with volunteer time or something, we are an unusually philanthropic people.
Right.
Have you found
28% of Americans volunteer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty incredible, right?
It's unheard of in other countries.
We are the most philanthropic country. And sometimes there is a country in the Netherlands that tries to take us on. And so I could be questioned on that.
I think we still got it. Although the pushback is usually, well, we don't have to be philanthropic because our government takes care of a lot of that stuff that they don't take care of the U.S. I'm like, okay, touche.
Right. But at the end of the day, I mean, when we go back to our tribal roots, we were, prehistoric man took care of their village.
Right.
And you took care of everyone in your tribe. And if we could all get back to the point, and I'm not saying global nonprofits aren't great, and I'm not saying helping people around the world isn't a great thing. I'm not saying that. But if you could start with your own community and your own neighborhood and your own next door neighbor, and you know them and you check in on them, it's that basic, right? If we could just if everybody did that, just that simple step, think what would happen.
Yeah, I often quote Stephen Covey, and I don't always get it quite right, but he has these circles, and he talks about the circle of concern, which is a huge circle, right? You're worried about climate change. You're worried about a disaster on the other side of the country or the other side of the world, but there's not a whole lot you can do about it versus your circle of influence, which is much smaller. And that's your family, your coworkers, your neighbors. And his advice is be concerned about what's going on, but focus on your circle of influence. You'll make a bigger difference. That circle will probably grow if you do it effectively. And it's going to make you feel like you're making a difference because you are. And it sounds like that's what you've been able to do.
And I think that's what all nonprofit founders do. I think that's not unique to me. I think it's, who do you go to when something exciting is happening? You tell your friends about it. Well, I don't care if it's a new product that you bought or something you're excited about, you tell your friends, right?
Yeah.
And when we were starting this, that's what happened. And then they told their friends, and like that old commercial, and so on and so on. So, but that's what people are doing all over this country every day. And I think we watch the news with it bleeds, it leads. And the sad reality is there is beautiful, beautiful, good work happening. And even podcasts like this, Bill, where you're talking to joyful people about bringing joy to others and being kind and positive and optimistic and bringing that to the world. It's happening all around us. You know it as well as I do, right?
The good guys outnumber the bad guys, and it's not even close.
Not even close.
It always has been and always will be. So I tip my cap to you, Heidi, for the work you've done, for the resilience you've shown, and growing out of loss. I just can't thank you enough for the work you do. I loved your book, Change for Good. And I look forward to listening to more of your podcast episodes. And thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today.
Thank you, Bill. And thank you for the work you're doing, shining a light on joy and goodness, because the world needs more of it.
My pleasure. Thank you. When I asked Heidi Johnson about whether she's ever second-guessed her decision to get into nonprofits and away from the far more lucrative professional work of her past, she says that in the work she does today, we get paid in different ways. And while full-time devotion to a nonprofit might not be possible for many of us, Heidi recommends we start small, perhaps as simply as reaching out to a next-door neighbor. I hope you enjoyed this blue sky conversation with Heidi Johnson. Before you go, please consider leaving us a rating or review. These help us bring attention to the show, and your feedback gives us ideas for how we might make our presentations better. This episode of Blue Sky was made possible by the skilled editing and mixing of the great crew at Sound On, Sound Off. To learn more about them, check out soundonsoundoff.com. And Crush Graphics is responsible for all graphics and cover art for the Blue Sky podcast and the Optimism Institute. That's Crush with a K, and you can find them at crushgraphics.com. Until next time, I'm the founder of the Optimism Institute and host of Blue Sky, Bill Burke, and I thank you for listening.